I want to start with the question, what brought you into poetry? Why poetry?
You want to take this first?
Okay. Well, for me, poetry represents universe. I can say right away that when I accosted poetry, so to say, if I use that aggressive word, it did something to me that no other art form did. I find it liberated my body, it liberated my mind. It set me flying in lots of different directions, particularly when it comes to confronting myself as a growing being. And as I got into the real writing of it, which was in my teenage years, I really got into poetry between the ages of 13 and 17. I discovered that that's the genre for me. Because for me, there's no limit to what you can do in a poem. It doesn't have to be linear, it doesn't have to be logical, it doesn't have to be rational. All those things can be incorporated in a poem. And then the opposite can work too. So that's it. So I think that's part of what I call the pegs of the word that got me into poetry.
Nice. Yeah, for me it's like and also something similar to what Uche said. I too got into poetry a little bit later. I'm from a family of poets, but my passion for it came a little later, and it was more of a journey for me. I was at a stage in my life where I was rejecting kind of like theological thought, religion, all of this. There's a movement. And yet there is always this search, I think, we as writers, poets, often the language brings us to, right? And so for me it was like looking at the external world and in some way feeling that this external world was connected to me internally, that the internal journey was emerging with the external image, and for me that was as spiritual as it got. A kind of feeling of connectedness to everything, and so it gave me poetry. That is, gave me what organized religions, with theology in the traditional sense could not.
Is meaning important to your poetry?
Reading?
Meaning.
Meaning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Must the poem have a message in it?
My take on that is that it might not be one meaning, yes. There's always a meaning to the poem, actually. But it's not one meaning, because after all, it's a piece of, call it a communicative machinery. You're trying to communicate. Poetry is also about communication. I don't really buy this postmodernist bullshit of, nothing, you haven't got to say nothing to anybody. That's crap. Then just put it under your bedroom, under your pillow, or put it on your closet or whatever. I'm communicating with people, It's simply that the communication might not be solemn, It might not be politically correct. It might not be party based, it might not be what I call it parochial, or sectarian. But there is always something to a poem. I always feel that when I send out a poem, there is some messages it's carrying. Because I've had this experience of just reading, to an audience, and suddenly somebody shoots me an email weeks after and say, you know what, you saved my life. And I'm like, how? He said, you know what you said that night? I didn't remember anything. So it's like these poems talk to people beyond us. We think, we know all about our poems or what they mean. It's not quite my own experience. I've realized that poetry or my poems are always older and smarter than me, the everyday me. This is my experience of it. So there is a meaning at times in the poem, actually beyond the meaning I intend sometimes. There is a way, the message, it's as if there are messages in these poems. Somebody else, somebody needs. That's it. There's somebody who needs these meanings or this whatever that I myself don't even know. So to summarize again, yes, meaning is essential to poetry. From all the kind of poetry that I write, but not conventional meaning or meaning that is manipulated.
Interesting. I remember in the introduction to your book, Elon Reef, there was this discussion or this idea that was posited in the introduction that you would never let the reader know what the meaning that you had intended in the poem to be, because you give them the freedom to interpret that meaning. And again, by having that, they had a personal relationship with their poem. I think meaning is important, vitally an important characteristic, but I don't think it in the traditional literal sense that this poem means a cat on a roof, or this poem means I have to run to the bathroom, or this poem means why the hell didn't I do my laundry?
Yeah.
You know, I think for me the one thing that I often try to connect with poetry as an artist, if there is meaning for me, and I'm often confused myself about what the meaning is the emotional relationship that the reader has. Myself as a reader, like I said earlier, the emotional connection that the reader has with the poem, that meaning is what's vital to me. That meaning, when I feel something, I may not know why I'm feeling it, you know, and I don't give a shit, you know, if I don't. It doesn't matter if I don't know why I feel a certain way when I come to a series of words. But what is exciting, what is truly exciting and enlightening, is that I understand that I feel. When I look at these words, I feel.
Beautiful.
That, to me, is the important meaning.
Can you talk about the musicality in poetics?
I feel you can separate music from poetry, if you ask me that, if I have to make such a loud-mouthed comment. Because for me, writing poetry is about also embodying it. It's about the body. It's not just like you're abstracting some words or some sentences. It all starts from the body. And I think that the way it affects other people is that also when I read other poets, for instance, or hear some other, say, a jazz line in a saxophone, or say in a trumpet or something, it's through the body. My body just reacts to it. It takes it in and it doesn't keep quiet. It's like it shakes. So and for me, music has always, not even something I adopted, say when I started writing seriously. No, music has been, I think, right from the first time I was aware of consciousness. Music has accompanied me. So in everything I did, whether it was writing or whether I was just playing around with some bunch of drums with friends, or whether it was what do I call it, love making, music has always accompanied me, So in summary, there is no way I can divorce music from what I do, whether it is the dailiness of my life, whether it has to do even with reading. Like when I also read other people, I see myself shaking my head when I'm reading a poem or another poet, for instance. If the music in another poet, doesn't catch me, I don't feel I have enough attention for it. So it's like for me, I react musically even while I'm reading. And it has nothing to do with something cultivated. I just realized it's part of me. Reading is part of me. Yes, and so it goes right into what I say where my passion is, which is poetry. So that musical passion also goes into what I write, I think, or I like to believe it goes into what I write. And as I'm writing it, it affects me as I'm writing it. So it's a very, very important feature of my work, music. Having played in bands, like I was saying, I've had some punk band, rock band I have done things with, in Europe. Very, very informally. Now and then we might from our basement practice rooms, into some theater or concert hall and just play for fun, and then go back to our basement rehearsal rooms. But we play like every week. We play at least 3 hours each week. We just get together and play music, whether it is so-called underground or whether it's overground.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely agree with you. I don't agree with you, my friend. I don't think you can separate music with poetry. To me, poetry is another form of music. There are rhythms. Look at the way we're speaking now. Here, we're just speaking. We're discussing these ideas, these thoughts we have about poetry, about art, all of this. And the way we speak, the rhythm, the cadence changes. The way we speak to each other, when we pick up a book and we read it, those poets who have been reading for a while, just listen to them read any poem, and there is a musical quality. The way they read it. You don't usually hear this monotone voice all the time. There is music, and they're hearing the music internally. They're expressing it externally. Right.
Do you become a part of the poem yourselves? And do you, I guess, remove yourself from the process and just let the words flow out of you?
Well, the romantic answer to that, you could say, well, the poem flows through you, you are just an instrument or whatever. That's fine, but that's only one part of the answer. Because the other answer is that you're going to deal with the technique. You're going to have some way to look at this now, this inchoate material that, that somehow comes to you, to organize it into a structure, into an art form. If you just allow only what comes to you, the way it comes, it's totally chaotic. So there's that shaping side of it too. The fact that you say, first of all, you receive this message from the cosmos.
So are you saying you're not in total control of your...
No, I've never been in total control. I mean, I don't legislate for the poem. But the only, but still I have a path to walk with it as a craftsman. In the sense that when this material is given to you, you're going to shape it into something. That's why I say it. So in a way, so it's mixed up. So it's like, first of all, there is the accidental and there is the intentional. There is the intuitive and there is the craftsperson and the craft that's going to deal with the poem. So the combination of both is what makes a poem. But I would say that in a larger sense, I allow more percentage of the poem to tell me what to do. All I need to do is simply, like a carpenter, knock some things in place for it to be palatable, so to say, as a piece of as an artwork. But we can also not separate both, the visionary, and say the technologist, so to say. They work hand in hand in my poems. That's what I say.
Yeah, I don't see this as an either-or scenario. I do think on some level we do strip ourselves of the ego in the creative process, but there is still something there. I'm still flesh and blood, and still bones, and still these ideas that are popping in my head. All these things that embody the experience of putting the poem together. So again, I don't necessarily see this as an either-or scenario, but that in some way there is this relationship that is happening. I don't think about all my own personal problems, issues, or anything in that process of poem, and that's one of the things that I think the art allows us to escape from, and why it's such a spiritual journey. In that sense, because it allows us to be simply more than ego, and to be something part of the historical aspect of language itself, the creative process, the cosmos, as you said, this thing that we may not completely understand, and yet we're taking part in, and yet we're part of the creative process, and yet we ultimately become that poem itself, and that's ultimately what brings me to this.